Happy Hobby. I'm David Gonos, and today we have a very special podcast episode. This is the Happy Hobby Sports Card podcast video combined thing. And today we have Patrick Imhoff, one of our longtime happy hobbyists, and actually one of our expert happy hobbyists. He's going to help us with 2024 Bowman Draft Baseball. We're going to go through his top 11 prospects from that set, or actually maybe it's his best values. We'll get into that a little bit. We're also going to go into his team rankings for people that want to get into group breaks for 2024 Bowman Draft Baseball. So why am I rambling on this? First, this is a podcast and a video channel that's meant for the card collector that's working with a limited budget, and that's Patrick and I. That's our deal. So this is an article that's on davidgonos.com. It's meant to help you get good bargains on the players we're looking at. So let's talk to Patrick. Patrick, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm good. I'm happy to be here, David. Thank you. Thank you for the invite and for calling me an expert on things that we have no control over.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. That's if you have the confidence, nobody's going to question if you got the confidence. That's all there is
Yeah,
to it.
that's what makes it fun. We got
A
to find
year from
competitive
now, nobody
advantage.
goes back and looks. That's the best part. Now, what's funny is I was a fantasy writer for a bajillion years, and it was every week they could check you. Hey, last week you said this. But when you're doing card rankings and such, yeah, people a year goes by and they forget. So at least we have that going for us.
Yep.
Patrick, I see you got your Pittsburgh Penguins hat on. He represents Pittsburgh. He lives in Texas, but used to live in Pittsburgh, right? Or the
Yeah,
area.
born and raised there.
Well, that's pretty cool. So he's a Pirates, knows his Pirates. Paul Skeens conveniently happens to be the top rookie in baseball, so National League Rookie of the Year. So I'm sure you're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I was actually torn a little bit. I've been watching his prices on his Topps Gold card, and I said maybe if he doesn't win, the price will drop a little bit quicker. But I love it for the city. I love it for the team. He seems like an awesome guy. But if you're not following, those prices on a gold out of 2024 have dropped almost $50 over
Oh
the last
wow!
month. So yeah, they're in the $50 instead of $100 now.
I
So
saw
I've
today it was
got my
like
eye.
60 to 90 or something like that, and I'm
Yeah,
sure there's some in there for 50. Um, it's funny because you mentioned that, and I'm a Tampa Bay Rays fan. Same thing. Junior Caminero, like you're excited about the guy, but you're like, it'd be better if nobody knew about him. Just
yep,
I knew about him. Same with, a few years ago with he who shall not be named, the shortstop.
exactly.
But
I know, but
yeah, like
yeah,
yeah, you're excited about this guy getting to the majors and being awesome, but you don't want everyone else to. It's like when you watch a TV show and it's just an awesome TV show. It's a secret, and you're the only one that knows about it. Then when you all of a sudden you see every news channel, everything talking about it's the greatest, and now you don't have this cool thing you can share. It's like
yeah.
I got a
It's the same.
sleeper
It's the
team.
same thing we're talking about here. I mean, I tried to make a value list, but we're sharing it with everybody. I don't
Yeah,
want.
there you go.
I don't
Right.
want to hide it. I hope it helps. And people can take advantage.
Thankfully, we don't have many viewers or listeners, so the value is not going to skyrocket that much. So that's a good thing. Once we share these names. So first, let's talk about 2024 Bowman Draft baseball. Well, it's only baseball, right? I guess in a few years, though, a couple years, once Fanatics take over, maybe they'll be doing Bowman Draft football and basketball. Doubtfully, though, because I guess they already have Bowman Draft, like draft. That's the
Yeah,
regular issue,
they already
right?
have the college product. So for basketball
Yeah,
and
I guess
football, I
it'd
don't
be
know. I don't know if it makes sense as
if
much
they
as
got hockey, that'd be the only way.
yeah.
That'd be the only way. So explain a little bit about 2024 Bowman Draft, about the Bowman Draft product itself. Um, Talk away
So
on what you think of that product.
yeah, historically, I mean, I want to say in 2000 was when we first got Bowman Draft. I think it wasn't called Bowman Draft; it was like Bowman Draft picks and prospects. But they had a mix of
This is in 2000.
2000, I think, is when they
Oh
did their
wow,
first release,
cool.
and it was hey, there's first prospect cards and there's prospect. They also had rookie cards in there still, and it was a little bit of everything. But Topps eventually took over Bowman, and they wanted all those rookies in Topps, so they made. I think Bowman Draft 2014 was the very first year that it was no more guys that were rookies. It was all prospect and first cards, and it's grown since then to have all the parallels, the refractors, the numbered cards.
Yeah.
But the big change for us happy hobbyists, came in 2022. I would say this is like a bad milestone. Is they used to make the jumbo box, the hobby box, but they made that Bowman Light. It was about $120 for a hobby box. You got the 5 black and white Ray Wave refractors, no guaranteed autos, but it was affordable. You could buy a
Oh
box of
man.
Bowman Draft and get these guys. And in 2022, that was the last year they made it. So now, if you're looking for it, you need to have $500 to $600 to buy a
Wow.
hobby box, and that's a lot of money for guys. And I mean, I love watching these guys, but half of them are never going to make it past
It's
Double A ball,
crazy.
and you're taking a huge risk. So I got out of it. I can't buy it anymore. So therefore, we're looking at the singles. Who can you chase? Because I still like to collect the cards, but I
Yeah.
can't afford that. It's too much money.
I feel like it's a bad move on Fanatic's part. However, I feel like it's also a move to see, like for me, I don't buy boxes of Bowman. I never have bought boxes. I will buy a blaster of, Bowman baseball, whatever, but I'll get into a break. So I feel like this might be Fanatic's little move to just force people into breaks
On
of
Fanatics
Bowman.
Live.
Yeah, Fanatic's
Yeah.
Live, right.
And I was the opposite with Bowman, because when I got into collecting again in maybe 2021, I'm a Pirates fan. But when you looked at the Pirates professional team, there was really no good rookies. There were no good players.
Yeah.
Our farm system was loaded, and it was like, well, Bowman Draft is where it's at. So I bought into breaks, and that's how I researched it, learned about it. But that was where the product was at for a Pirates fan, because there was nobody to collect. It's
They
kind
were
of weird
cheap
how
at
that
least.
works.
Cheap on the pick your team breaks, right?
Well, that's the funny thing is, as bad as they are to pick your team breaks, they're expensive because they always have the top draft picks when your team is bad.
Oh,
So it's like a double whammy right there.
yeah,
They get
right.
you.
Oh, that's a good point. All right. So let's get into this now. They do have the hobby box. They have the or I'm sorry, the hobby jumbo box, the super jumbo box, but they also have the HTA choice box, which HTA, it used to be Tops's home team advantage. I think it was a club or something that they had
Yeah,
that you can join in. But anyways, do you know anything about that? You got
the HTA is just, it's a little bit more than the hobby box, less than the jumbo box, but I don't think you get as many cards out of it. But there's more guaranteed autos. It's kind of like the Breakers Delight boxes they go with nowadays. That
right.
they want to funnel out. They want to get people's cards out there quickly. Nobody wants the commons that we collect.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Yeah, we're like, that's cool. Send them our way. We'll take
Yeah.
it. Okay, so now there's both paper and chrome in the Bowman draft.
Yeah, most of the packs you open up, it'll start with all the paper products, and you can get parallels in the paper. Let's see, like a numbered card or two, and then usually the back of the pack will have your chrome, and then it'll finish up with, usually just the hobby pack, I want to say, has 2 refractors at the very end. Could be a
Gotcha.
first refractor, could be just a prospect refractor, a guy that already had a first card.
Okay,
That's
so that's what I was gonna say. So
stuff.
they do have Bowman firsts, but then they also just have Bowman prospects
Yeah.
mixed in as well.
I think when I went through the checklist to kind of put this together, there's 200 base cards, if you will, or 200 prospect cards. And of the 200, it was something 120. Some of those guys are first. So the
Gotcha.
other 70 to 80 cards they're guys that are, they were the first pick last year. So there's still a big name to collect, but it's not a Bowman
Sure.
first, which usually means that card is not going to carry any value.
Right.
Even if the
As
parallel
much,
or
right?
numbered, it still isn't going to carry value.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good. That's perfect. That's good to know. Um, and the other thing that always mixes me up is why they have Bowman first. Like you'll see multiple you'll what am I trying to say? Like some of the autos are first because they don't have the Bowman first card in that set. Who was it last? Was it Walker Jenkins or
Yeah, that's one of those. If I could be the CEO of Fanatics, you
there
would
you go.
never have a Bowman first card that was only the auto version of it, because there's some guys you want to collect, and you just want to get a Chrome card for $5, but all they offer is a Bowman first auto, and now you're paying a couple $100. And there's a couple guys that it really gets to me that they do that, because I'd like to have those cards, but I'm not going to get them.
Yeah, that's no good. Right. That makes sense. Okay, so let's get into this list. This is the 2024 Bowman Draft Player Rankings Top 11 Prospects Cards. You mentioned that based on the pedigree and high draft position of these players, the singles would be a little more expensive, but you recommend chasing the chrome versions of these cards and maybe some refractors of these. Um, Also, something I found out is there's in Bowman Draft, two of the top 10 picks are not in this class. Charlie Condon, the third pick for the Rockies, and JJ Weatherholt, eighth pick for the Rockies. No, what's Weatherholt? Is he with the Tigers?
Uh, he no,
I'll look that up while we're talking. But
yeah,
I
that's Josh and Mike from family. That's the West Virginia grad. They're a little bit disappointed. They got to wait. Uh,
Weatherholt, St. Louis
St.
Cardinals.
Louis, yeah, and St.
Yeah,
Louis, if
okay.
you'll notice from the team rankings, is missing their first round pick this year because he's and Bowman always does that. They save a couple, usually two or three from the top 10, and they
Right.
save them for the Bowman baseball product so that there's a couple big names to still chase for guys to go by
Which
that.
which last year was Dylan Cruz. Was it Walker Jenkins?
I think those might be the two that
Oh,
were
Max Clark.
yeah, there was one or
Maybe it's
two
three.
big names, yeah,
Yeah.
that they saved.
At any rate, let's get right into it. So the first guy, let's go ahead and tell us who you should we count down? No, let's not count it. Just go. We'll go 1 through 11 here. Who's the first
Yeah,
guy
I
you have?
I started with Travis Bazana. I hope I'm saying that right. I mean, he was the number one pick. It's hard to go past that. And I mean, Cleveland does a good job bringing up prospects, and he's got the pedigree to be ready to go faster than anybody. So, absolutely the number one guy in my opinion. And like you said, these guys here, I always considered these are the guys that if you're buying a card soon, is it's just a chrome card, maybe a refractor if you find a good deal, but you're not going to get a numbered parallel that's not going to be overpriced at least until they get some playing time under their belts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's Bazana maybe, but he's
Sounds
from
right.
Australia.
Yep.
So who knows how we pronounce it because we don't speak Australian around these parts. But I wonder about that, the Australian thing. The first overall pick being Australian. In basketball, we've had a couple of them. Andrew Bogut and Ben Simmons. Neither of them, I mean, Bogut had a pretty nice career, but Ben Simmons obviously kind of, derailed. In baseball, we've had some players. I mean, Curtis Mead for the Rays, not a superstar, but he's certainly worthy of playing. I wonder, moving from Australia over to here, well, what do you think that's going to do to a guy? I mean, I guess we have plenty of Japanese players moving over, Korean players, all that. I don't know. It's an interesting thing for a first overall pick.
Yeah, I
That's
think
a
it'll
little
be
tricky
easier.
for me.
Obviously, easier than the guys coming from Korea or Japan. You look at the hockey players do it. Usually, the team sets them up, and he speaks the language already. So I think that's
It's
a
a good
easy
point.
position. If he came to
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, Mario would just say, "Come live with me, and I'll take care of you."
Oh
So
yeah.
that's Sidney Crosby. He lived with Mario Lemieux his first couple years in the
Did
league.
not know that. Oh,
He
that's
could
pretty
grow
cool.
up properly and have a family.
Hey, for the Buccaneers, Tom Brady, he told Antonio Brown to come live with him for a little bit.
Yeah,
That worked out great. No.
really, really good for you guys.
For the first year, at least, for sure. All right, so who we got for the second one? This is going to be a fun one to hear you pronounce.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it. Jack Caglianone. I don't know how to say his name, but
I'd go with that one.
yeah, he's out of Kansas City, and I put him at number two, mostly because he's still a two-way player, and that's rare these days. And is he the next Shohei? Probably not. Nobody's the next Shohei. He's in his own
Right.
category, but it's fun to watch these guys when a team they're not willing to say pick first base or pick pitcher. They'll let them develop. I mean, we did that in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh with our pitcher coming up. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. He's the number one pitching prospect for us. He played the field and the pitcher until pitching was his thing. So
Yeah.
I love it when
Was
they
it
do
Rick?
that.
Was it Rick Ankiel also went pitcher, then he turned outfielder, or vice versa?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The Cardinals, and
yeah,
then Homer Bush, I think, also for the Padres. He fizzled out as an outfield or as a shortstop or outfielder, and then he ended up becoming a pitcher, and I think he made it to the majors as a pitcher. So
yeah.
yeah,
So this guy
why are
must
they?
be athletic. He's got to be good if they're willing to let him try it. So
Yeah,
I like to watch that. So that's why I put him at number two.
why pigeonhole? I
Yeah.
think they're learning why pigeonhole these guys when they could develop differently at
Yep.
different positions. And Curtis Wilkerson, it's a stupid. I mean, no, he wasn't a superstar in the majors, but he was a pretty good player for the Florida Gators. He was an outfielder, kind of like a Wyatt Langford. He was a great outfielder, and he was a fantastic pitcher. I want to say he was a closer. So the Gators used him as such, and I always thought it was crazy the Expos ended up drafting. I also thought it was crazy that they don't use them. Like, I mean, especially in the National League when the switching was a lot,
Yeah. I mean,
more
that's where
prolific.
Paul Skeens was a catcher in college at Air Force, and then he decided he wanted to pitch, and he forced his
Wow,
way to the starting role. But he played.
that's
He
crazy. Did
started
not
off
know
as
that.
as a top catcher. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Learn something. I like that. You learned me. All right,
Yeah.
number three. What are we looking at? So that was the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah.
Jack Caglianone. So
Nick Kurtz at number 3 to the Athletics. I don't want to say Oakland anymore. I don't know what
yeah,
we're calling the Athletics.
yeah.
But I've liked him there because he was already in Double A ball last year. They moved him up quickly, and I think they're going to want to advertise him. They need a name for their farm system. So anything Oakland or Vegas is doing, they need that face. So they're going to give him every chance. So
Great
he's
point.
got it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
And
really good
Double
point.
A, that was a quick start to get to Double A. So I like that.
Good, good, good. Yeah, I like that. It's funny. Like the A's have been similar to what you're talking about with the Pirates. They're at the bottom for so long, and they get these high draft picks. I mean, they haven't been good in a while, and they get these high draft picks. You'd think we'd start to see something. It just we never see. Maybe they traded them away. I don't know
It's
what's going
the ownership, the money.
on.
When it
Yeah,
comes to the contract, you just start over. That's the feeling we do in Pittsburgh is we never spend the money to actually build it. We just
yeah.
develop them and we let the Yankees and the Red Sox take them.
Hey, I'm a Rays fan. It's a similar situation here.
Yeah,
They develop a lot of guys. We'll trade for other teams' best prospects, develop or good prospects, develop them a little bit more, turn them into maybe they finally put together an all-star season. Then we can't sign them, or so we have to ship them out. One of these days there's got to be. It's a different discussion, but salary cap has to come into play. Look what the
yeah.
Dodgers are doing. I mean, they're put. I mean, it's insane what's happening
I
in
think I
LA.
read that. Yeah, I think I read they have over $1 billion of deferred money in contracts. I don't
Wow.
like. I don't know how people compete with that. $1 billion in deferred
Yeah.
money.
What's really crazy is that the Angels can't figure it out. That's really nuts. I mean, same market
Same
essentially,
market.
but
Yep.
not the history. But still, I mean, more history than the Rays. But anyway, so number four. This one sounds like it'd be close to your heart.
Oh yeah, Connor Griffin. I love this pick. First high school prep player to go. He's a shortstop, and like high school guys, it's a couple years before you're going to see them. He's 18, so you're looking at least
Yeah.
if he was superstar, maybe 21 year old, 3 years he's up. But shortstop it's an open position in our farm system and our major league team. We don't really have a shortstop, so if he wants to take it, he can. And that's what everybody's looking at right now is will he take it? So
Nice.
I like him there.
Oh, good. Well, I see you got we got the autograph card of him in the article on davidgonis.com, so that's nice. We got that in there.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
should
so
give you that one.
move into have you picked up any of his cards? Have you done any breaks or anything for Bowman Draft?
No, I haven't even looked yet. I'm intentionally waiting until probably January before I start looking. I need to see another
Yeah.
product release to get the prices down because I think
You
it'll
know
be way
what? While
too
we're
much.
talking about it, I looked up the average team break prices.
I
We'll
saw
talk
that. Yeah,
about that later on. I wanted to see where Pittsburgh is. Yeah, there's the sixth most expensive team break price, which is pretty
because
crazy.
it's all about Connor Griffin is bringing that price up.
Gotcha. That's good to know. All right, we got number five.
Braden Montgomery for the Red Sox. I like what Boston's done the last couple of years with some of their draft picks. They've done a good job of taking lower round guys and developing them and bringing them up. I think they've had some of the minor league players of the years there. So that's kind of why I liked him there. He can hit for both power and average, so he's not just a home run hitter or a single
Yeah,
hitter. So I like what they do in Boston. So I think he's got a chance if that organization stays together properly that they'll develop him.
now, you mentioned that hit for both power and average. To me, I think that's one of the key components for a collectible player. Um, you have the sluggers that can just, rake, but then you also have then they strike out a ton and they're batting 220. You also have the guys that can spray it all around the field, but they don't get home runs, so not quite as sexy to draft or to, I'm talking fantasy, or to collect for cards. So that's a nice thing. Let's Braden Montgomery, both power and average. So what's your opinion on that? Players that can both hit.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm an anomaly, like a guy like Steven Kwan that's just going to hit for average. I love a player like that. He gets on base, and that's your chance to score. But if you can find a guy like a Juan Soto type guy that hits for power, hits for average, gets on base, like what that guy's doing, like how collectible he is. So you hope
Yeah,
that you find who that next guy is.
yeah, absolutely. Like you said, a plus defender in the outfield. That's a thing too. I mean, when you look at the positions of some of these players, that affects their collectability. We've talked about, in the past, we've talked about pitchers. It's tough for pitchers from a collectability standpoint because they fade, whether it's maybe injuries or because they pitch 5 times, every fifth day, they're not as visible. Like whatever it is, there's some reason why pitchers are not as collectible. So it's the same with other positions too. What positions do you think you would rank as the most collectible?
Yeah, I look at the most collectible, honestly, is shortstop and center field. I think that's like the two captains of the defense right there. And then right field is typically up there with second base and third base. And then I rank catcher, first base, and left field, usually a little bit lower, as to who you're putting out there. It depends on the ballpark too, but catchers and first basemen, they don't carry the weight, neither do pitchers. Paul Skeens being the exception, but I mean, he could blow out his arm. I hope he never
Yeah,
does, but and then his market's gone.
right, right.
I know we
It's
did an
interesting.
article about that, and it was the same thing. There's nobody that historically carries value as pitchers.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, you wrote that in the newsletter. Yeah, Ganas.substack.com, the Happy Hobby Sports Card newsletter. But you mentioned shortstop and center field. Those are notably speed positions, but speedsters aren't always collectible. So when you get a shortstop that hits for power, he usually also has some speed, or a center fielder who hits for power. Think of like a Mookie Betts.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like that stand out at that position to have more power than normal is that's a nice thing for
Yeah, absolutely.
collectors. All right, so let's move into this second half. Number six.
Yeah, Chase Burns, and he was the number 2 draft pick, but he's a pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds. So I couldn't put him any higher. I thought 6 was as high as I was going to go for him as a pitcher. He played at Wake Forest, which is a great. They have a great college program. They do a lot of pitcher development there. So, but yeah, he's got some serious speed. He can throw the ball. I think he's got a couple pitches already that if he works on, he should be good. But
Nice. And you mentioned, it's unfair to expect to be the next Paul Skeens. Obviously, that's what a lot of people are going to think. The first pitcher drafted, that's going to be in their heads that this guy has that potential. But you mentioned here in the article that maybe expecting around 2027 in the majors is a realistic expectation for a college pitcher.
yeah, and it's different to go from what they do in college, where they're pitching on Saturdays, usually one day a week, to have to work the
Yeah,
arm
good
up.
point.
They got to, and that's nobody knows how to do that in baseball. I mean, they dealt with that with Skeens last year. Should we let you go? Should we limit your innings? Should we do this? Nobody knows the answer to
Right.
what stress your arms under. So it's the organization's going to do what they got to do, and I'm not super smart on what Cincinnati's roster looks like. Do they even need him yet, or can they bring him up slowly?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of how they make their mind up.
All right. So let's scooch through. Let's go with seven.
Bryce Rayner, Detroit. He was, I think, the second high school pitcher player drafted, not a pitcher. He's an infielder, shortstop too, so he plays the premier position. And I like what Detroit is willing to do with their young players. I mean, you saw what they did with Colt Keith. They signed that contract right away. They brought him up. They've got some potential right now if they can keep Scooble on their team. So if he makes a name for himself, they're not going to hesitate to bring him up. They're not just going to leave him in the minors to say you got to stay there and do your time. So that's
Yeah, the
always a
Tigers
plus.
they're kind of like a poor man's Orioles right now. A lot of youth,
Yeah,
just not the same caliber, but a lot of youth there.
yeah.
Okay, number eight.
Christian Moore from the Angels. he was another guy that went right to Double A ball. So the Angels moved him up, and again, kind of like Detroit. If you look at what the Angels have done, they've done some weird drafts over the year with all the pitchers 1 year. But if they think you're good, like Nolan Shanuel, they brought him right up. He was playing first base, I think, the same year he got drafted. So if you prove yourself, you're going to be on a major league roster, and that carries credibility. So I'd say Christian Moore has a chance if he's already in Double A. He could be in Triple A this year, and if he hits and he fields, he's going to be up there.
And number 9 with the White Sox.
Yeah, Hagen Smith. I think he was the second pitcher taken in the first round. So I didn't want to just go all fielders up here, so I put him in there. But he was interesting because he has a deceptive arm delivery. You've seen a couple of those guys in baseball still that have a mid slot delivery or a lower delivery.
Yeah.
So they're very deceptive for pitcher or players to hit up where the ball is. So if he can keep, I think he's got controllability issues. Those guys usually do, but if he can harness the control, I don't know if he'll be a starter. Those are the guys that are usually like middle inning relievers, late inning relievers. So he could make a name for himself.
Gotcha. Yep. Number 10, first baseman outfielder.
Yeah, he San Francisco Giants, James Tibbs the third, Florida State guy. I picked him up because I think he's still got room to grow. We haven't seen his ceiling yet because if you look at his college stats, every year he improved. So he kept showing that with the coaching, he's going to make improvements. If the minor league coaches get him, he could be better and better. So seems like he hasn't fully hit his potential yet. So he's got room to grow.
Nice, nice. And what about the Mets, number 11?
Carson, I don't know if that's Benj or Benji. I don't know how to say his name either.
Good guess. I got it.
He's got the plus arm out there to either play right field or center field. So two of those premier positions. So that puts him as a defensive player first, which is good. So if they can develop the bat, he's that guy that we talked about, a Mookie Betts type player. So
and he said here he has a great exit velocity in college. So
yeah,
that's we always like that. That's always a big thing in collecting. Those are the long ball guys. We like those guys. All right, so let's look here into the top 11 value prospects. Now, these are cards or players whose card you're saying basically these should be some cheap pickups with upside.
Yeah, these are the guys that I looked at and I said, hey, now if you want to get that blue out of 150 card, or if you want to get a interesting parallel, you might be able to find that for under $10, under $15, because these guys didn't go in the first round. Most of them didn't go in the second round. So these were later draft pickups. So, and they might be right where they were supposed to be. But what I looked at was their pre-draft ranking, and where they actually fell was there was a good delta there to say that team picked them up at a value position. And some teams do that for money reasons. So they could be better than advertised. There's a couple of guys that could have been in the first round possibly, but they dropped to the second round or the third round.
I like that mechanism. I like that thinking of what was their pre-draft
Yeah.
value, and then what happened after the draft, and then you see this big disparage, the difference.
Yeah, and that's all we have to go off of right now for most of these guys. So, I mean, because there's no stats yet to know that is it a good pickup or isn't it. But like I said, we're happy hobbyists looking for value. So this is where I was trying to find some value. So
and Cam Caminiti, he's a great story in general. That's Ken Caminiti's son, right? I believe. But he's a pitcher. Ken Caminiti was one of the best third basemen in the 90s. So, entire decade of the 90s. But his son, pitcher.
Yeah, and he did go in the first round, but he could have been almost a top 10 pick. I think MLB Pipeline has him in the top 100 already, so he's already ranked pretty high. But
I think they were afraid of him going to college. I think.
I think so. They probably. I mean, his dad was a pretty smart man. He knows where money is. Pitchers get the money, and if you can keep your arm safe and not waste it in college, there you go. You got your payday.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so let's get to these draft team break rankings. So 2024 Bowman draft team break rankings. So you have them ranked by. Okay, go ahead and explain.
Yeah, so I geeked out a little bit. I built an Excel spreadsheet. I listed every team, how many cards, and I only listed it by cards of the firsts. So I wasn't tracking guys that have just a second year player. So this is all Bowman firsts. So I kind of looked at the makeup of the Bowman first, and then of those first players, Did they go to college or did they go to high school? Were they pitchers or were they position players? And is their first rounder included? And then I tried to, mash that all together and come up with some kind of ranking to say, the Houston Astros are the last team because they have one person. That's it. You're hoping to
Mm.
get one card. So, most of it goes by the numbers. But then if I'm looking at a team that had a couple teams with five players, but one team's got four pitchers, I'm going to penalize that a little bit when I built this.
Sure, that makes sense. So I had pulled up there's a website called
Yeah.
breakcomp.com. Let me look.
And I saw your
Yeah.
email and I did a quick look to take who might have been in my top 10 and who was under $100 for your
So let
book.
me explain it real quick.
Yeah.
So breakcomp.com is a website that collates and gathers all of the prices for pick your team breaks. So for different products, and specifically, they did one for the 2024 Bowman Draft HTAs. So this is only for it's a 6 box HTA case break. So in other words, you mentioned the Astros, they're the cheapest team. So if you spent $30 and bought the pick your team break for the Astros, all of the Astros cards that come out of that 6 box case go to you. So for $30, like you said, there's only one Bowman first card, so it's not really. I mean, $30. You might get a bunch of them, but there's just the one. So so I ranked. I got all the pricing by most expensive to least expensive, and now looking at your list here, there's some interesting ones. Anyways, go ahead. What
Yeah.
was it that I asked you to do?
So the two interest. So I kind of pulled out, a top five, and then I broke it down to the top two that I would say Toronto and New York Mets. Toronto was selling for $74 on average, and that $74, you're getting a team with six Bowman first cards. Five of those guys went to college. One was a high school, two fielders, and four pitchers. Second one being the Mets. The Mets was selling for 95, five cards in there, three fielders, two pitchers. So those would have been the ones that, knowing nothing about how these guys are going to play and knowing nothing about what you're going to hit. And I only looked at prices under $100 because
No, that's
I kind of,
perfect.
so I went under 100 and I said, if I was going to spend $100 or less, I'd buy Toronto or the Mets. The other ones I pulled out was San Diego and the Atlanta Braves too. The Padres and the Braves
Oh,
seemed
nice.
like seemed like they could have some value too.
It was
So
interesting, like just looking at these prices, Cleveland is the highest team with $413 per team, or for to buy them in a 6 box break. But it's crazy to think that's pretty much you're putting it all on Travis Bazzana, like if he can come through. But $413, that's $80 more than the Royals in the second spot. So it's interesting. I guess you're obviously you're going for the Bazzana autograph, trying hoping to get a numbered autograph or a low numbered autograph at that. But just 6 spots later, there's players in the low 200s for $180. So it's just interesting, like how much people will spend to get to guarantee that they'll get those
yeah,
first
and it's to
first team.
me, it's I can't stomach that. I know if you go back to I think it was 2020 Bowman draft when Spencer Torkelson was the guy, and you see what people were spending on the Detroit Tigers to get that
Wow.
card, and look at where he is now. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
hoping he comes to Pittsburgh and plays first base for us because we could use him, but he's not who anybody thought he was going to be, and
Right.
they're spending hundreds of dollars to hope to get a numbered card or just a refractor, maybe an auto. So it's extremely risky, way more risky than it is to spend money on a Topps Update hobby box and hope to get a Paul Skeens card or something, because at least there's a proven
Yeah.
commodity there. And we don't know who these guys are going to be. So,
Yep. Very true. Very true.
yeah.
Well, man, I'll tell you what, I thought that was pretty insightful and helpful. I appreciate you jumping in with us. I'll tell you what, I want to have you back on for I want to have you back on regularly, to be honest with you, but for you wrote an article for the website, davidgonos.com, 6 types of players whose cards you want to buy. This was like it was definitely your first thing I think you wrote for the site, but it was maybe almost, it's at least a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, Might have,
It's I can't even remember where we started this journey together. So
but it's a man, it's a great article. So what I'm thinking for that one, let's do that like in February. Like let's plan that as spring training is about to ramp up and everybody's getting ready to dig in on uh buying some singles and baseball cards and such. But well, I'll tell you what, Patrick, man, I appreciate it. Outside of the Pittsburgh thing, like you were great. You're awesome. I appreciate it.
yeah, no, I
Uh,
hear you with the Tampa. Tampa's one of my role models because it proves that it can be done. We just got to figure it out. So
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm a Pirates fan. Like you guys are, it's a legendary franchise, and thankfully we're in separate leagues, so we can root for
yeah,
each other's teams.
absolutely.
But I appreciate you coming out, and we'll definitely have you on for something
Yeah,
else.
thanks for having
Another
me.
rankings, another if it's maybe it's a strategy, or we do a lot of stuff within the Happy Hobby newsletter, whether it's in the chat. I mean, you and I are always we always got something going on. I appreciate you for sure and helping out with the channel, newsletter, the podcast, all that stuff. So I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate you're such an open guy that you actually reply to the comments. So that's a rarity these days. So
Oh,
thanks.
well, thanks. I appreciate that. And speaking of which, to the listener, to the viewer, man, put in the comments what you'd like for us to talk about next time. We'll definitely be doing these again. I'm starting to do more of these. I want to do more of these video podcast combo things. So let us know what you'd like us to talk about, what you'd like some help with, and shoot us either put it in the comments in the video or if it's on the podcast, you can email me at gonoscards@gmail.com. And we'll wrap it up. And whatever you do, make sure you have a happy hobby.